Have you ever felt like you're the only one standing up for something you really truly believe in? Well, imagine doing that not just in your friend group, but in front of the most powerful people on the entire planet. Okay, let's get right into this incredible true story.
Now, really think about that for a second. What if a king, an emperor, and the pope all pointed at you and said, "Take back everything you said or else"? Would you have the guts to say no? Well, about 500 years ago, one man faced that exact choice.
All right, so who are the main players here? Well, on one side, you've got Martin Luther, a pretty humble monk and professor. And on the other side, just the brand new, crazy powerful ruler of most of Europe, Emperor Charles V.
So, the emperor sends Luther an invitation. One of those invitations you just can't refuse. He was being summoned to this massive assembly of all the princes and lords of Germany, a meeting called the Diet of Worms. And no, it has absolutely nothing to do with eating worms.
A diet was just the old-timey name for a formal meeting, and this one happened to be held in the city of Worms in Germany. You can kind of think of it like a giant, super important courtroom where all the big shots got together to decide the fate of the empire. And, in this case, the fate of one lonely monk.
So here's the deal. Luther had written these books that were really critical of the church, and the Pope was furious, calling his ideas dangerous. So the emperor was basically giving Luther one last chance in front of everybody. Publicly say you're sorry, take it all back, or get ready to face the consequences.
Just getting to this meeting was an act of unbelievable bravery. Luther knew he was walking straight into the lion's den, and pretty much everyone he knew was telling him, "Don't go." His friends were absolutely terrified for him. They kept bringing up what happened to another guy, Jan Hus, who was promised he'd be safe, and then they burned him at the stake. They pleaded with Luther, saying, "They're going to do the exact same thing to you."
But Luther's mind was made up. His response was just, wow. He basically said that even if his enemies lit a fire that stretched for miles, a fire so huge its flames reached the sky, he would still walk right through it to stand for what he believed. He even famously declared that if the city was filled with as many devils as there were tiles on the roofs of all the houses, he still wouldn't be afraid. He was going, and that was that.
So when he finally arrived, the scene was just incredibly intimidating. Just imagine walking into the biggest, fanciest hall you've ever seen, and it's jam-packed with Europe's most powerful people, and every single one of them is staring right at you. And there he was, a poor, thin monk who was already sick from his long journey, standing right in front of the emperor, sitting on his throne. He was totally surrounded by princes in their fancy robes, knights in shining armor, and powerful church leaders. It was literally one man against the world.
The entire, massive trial boiled down to just two simple questions. An official points to a big pile of Luther's books and asks, first, did you write these? And second, are you ready to take back everything you said in them?
Now, to everyone's surprise, Luther didn't give some big, fiery speech right away. He just quietly asked for one day to think about his answer. And that night, his courage kind of crumbled. He was terrified. He apparently fell on the floor and just prayed, feeling completely crushed by the power he was up against. He was only human after all. The next day, Luther came back. The hall was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Everyone was leaning in, just waiting for the words that would seal his fate and really change the course of history forever.
So the emperor demanded a simple yes or no. He just wanted Luther to submit to the authority of the church. Full stop. But Luther's response was a total shocker. He said, "Look, I'll take it back, but only if you can prove from the Bible itself that I'm wrong. Otherwise, my conscience is stuck." The prosecutor was starting to get really angry. He didn't want a debate, he wanted a surrender. So he pushed him one last time, demanding a straight answer, no more conditions. Will you or will you not retract?
And then it happened. With the entire room holding its breath, Luther looked right at the emperor, at all these powerful men who held his life in their hands, and he gave his final answer. "I cannot and I will not retract," he said, "for it is unsafe for a Christian to speak against his conscience."
And he finished with maybe the most famous words of his entire life, a statement of pure, unshakable courage. "Here I stand. I can do no other. May God help me. Amen."
The whole place was just stunned into silence. Nobody had ever talked to the emperor like that. Even Charles V, his biggest enemy, was impressed.
He actually turned to his advisors and said that this one monk had more courage than any warrior.
But that kind of bravery comes at a huge price. Luther was now a marked man. His story wasn't over. In fact, it was about to take a wild turn, like something out of a thriller movie. The emperor kept his promise to let Luther travel home safely, but the second that promise expired, Luther was officially an outlaw. That meant anyone, anywhere could capture him or even kill him without getting in any trouble. He was a fugitive, and his enemies were just waiting for him on the road.
Okay, so this is where it gets crazy. As he's traveling through a forest, bam, a group of armed, masked horsemen charge out of the woods and surround his wagon. They grab him and ride off into the trees. For weeks, everyone thought Luther had been captured and probably killed. But the truth? It was a secret rescue mission planned by his powerful friend Frederick, who had him stashed away in a secret hideout, the super remote Wartburg Castle.
Luther was hidden away in that castle for almost a year. But he didn't just sit around. While the world thought he was gone for good, he was working on something that would change everything. He started translating the New Testament of the Bible into German, the language of everyday people, so that for the very first time, anyone could read it for themselves. And that really brings us to our final thought here. The story of Martin Luther at Worms isn't just about history. It's about the explosive power of a single idea and one person's courage to defend it. It leaves us with this huge question. What happens when one person, just standing up for their own conscience, ends up changing the entire world?